Welcome back to Homesteading with the Zimmermans, where we work hard and play hard on our little corner of land in Iowa. My husband and I were born and raised Old Order Mennonite, or horse and buggy Mennonite, as some refer to them as. And although we are no longer part of that culture or community, we are intentional about passing on the old-fashioned skills of our childhood to the next generation. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Homesteading with the Zimmermans. My name is Ruth Ann Zimmerman, and in today's video, it'll be a little bit of a different format because over last weekend we were at a homestead festival right here in Iowa, and my husband filmed one of the topics I did, which was cooking from scratch. So that is what today's video will be about. But first of all, I wanted to do a little promotion for a company that I've worked with in the past. You've all seen me work in my garden with my high wheel cultivator, and I wanted to link one for all of you because I get many questions saying, hey, where did you get that? And my original high wheel cultivator I bought at an auction. But when I went online to see what options are available so that I could link it for you, the first one that popped up was with Agri Supply, and they're a company that I worked with in the past. I promoted their big cast iron pan that I use, the rectangular one. Very, very nice people. So I reached out to them and I said, hey, I have worked with you in the past, and I'd like to give my subscribers the opportunity to purchase a high wheel cultivator, and I asked if they would give me a discount code for you, and they were kind enough to give a discount code for you. So the high wheel cultivator it has a 24-inch steel wheel and has 4.5 foot wooden handles, so you can maneuver it around all kinds of little corners and plants and rows in your garden. It comes with 3 different attachments. So there's a 5-tine cultivator that I use for weeding when I have lots of low weeds in a row, and then it has a 2-point shovel, and this I use for making rows in my garden. And then it also has what is that called? It also has a turn shovel, and I like to drive the turn shovel right along the edge of my rows and kind of hill some of my plants. And what hilling does is it covers the weeds, the tiny weeds that might be coming up with your plants. Anyway, I am going to link this high wheel cultivator and the discount code in the description, and I'm also going to link the Agri Supply YouTube video, because if you want to know more about this company, please go watch their promotional video, because they've done a high wheel cultivator promotional video just for you guys, so that you can get a better idea of what you might be purchasing. So that is the high wheel cultivator that you see me using, and let's get into the Cooking from Scratch 101. My name is Ruth Ann Zimmerman. Instagram, Ruth Ann Zim. YouTube, we are Homesteading with the Zimmermans. And today I'm going to talk about one of my least favorite subjects of all, and that is cooking. I don't usually make it a secret on any of my platforms that my goal in the kitchen is to get out as quickly as possible. But my mom did a very good job, and if you were here yesterday when I talked about children on the homestead, my mom made sure that I had all the skills I needed. I didn't necessarily love it, but I have all the skills. So for those of you that are raising children on the homestead, even if they don't love something, they can still learn the skills and go on to use it.
So my family was here yesterday. And if you met them yesterday, you're gonna say, this picture's outdated because the boys are much smaller on here. Mitchell now stands much taller than me. And we've added 2 new members of the family. We have a grandson and another son-in-law. So there was 12 of us yesterday. We were all here. And these people right here, they are the inspiration behind every minute I spend in the kitchen. If it was up to me, I'm a drive-through Sue. Like if I don't have to think about food, I am very, very happy. So some of the people in this picture are very picky. Or in our home, we say they have a very refined palate. Like they can taste things that nobody else can taste. So what is cooking from scratch? In today's age, it seems to be a very lost skill. But basically, what cooking from scratch is using ingredients that don't come from a package to create your snacks and meals. Like raw ingredients, fresh vegetables, it's a lot more work. That's what cooking from scratch is. So cooking from scratch is like your grandma cooked, or like my grandma cooked, and they cooked from scratch out of necessity. They were poor, and they didn't have supermarkets. So when a lot of ingredients started to get approved, that helped companies create food that had a long shelf life. And then this gave way to supermarkets. Before that, if you didn't have a family milk cow, your neighbor did, you would get your butter from the neighbor. And there was no supermarkets. Everybody had their area of expertise, and they traded with one another or bought from one another. Things were fresh. They didn't have things with a shelf life. They were lucky if they had a refrigerator or an ice box. So their diets were very, very simple. Not like ours are today. Like real simple ingredients. So grocery store shopping moved from neighborhoods into supermarkets. No longer did you support your neighbor that was selling butter from her family milk cow, because you could now get margarine at the grocery store. So no one knew when all the tests, everything is like, oh, this is safe to consume, everything that they put into to preserve the food. But nobody tested what happens if 100% of our diet includes these ingredients every day. So if you're eating processed foods all day, every day, just know that the amount of these preservatives that you're consuming has probably not been deemed safe for anybody. Preservatives in small amounts aren't going to hurt you. So some of the common preservatives in prepackaged foods, I have a little bit of a pain point that drew us back to cooking from scratch, and it's been a long, long journey to get me back into the kitchen as much time as I spend now. It didn't happen overnight, but as I said yesterday, my husband and I were born and raised Old Order Mennonite, which is very similar to the Amish for those of you that aren't familiar with the Mennonites. So we were raised cooking from scratch, very much self-sufficient communities, living off the land. And so when we got saved, left that community, our girls were preschool age. And of course we took this long journey away from everything we ever knew. And in addition to now learning to drive a car, I was learning what it feels like to be able to go to the store every day and buy what I needed, instead of having to go once a month in the horse and buggy and buy everything I need for that month. So our diet took a drastic turn, and our oldest daughter got sick with tonsillitis and strep throat over and over and over. So the doctor said, well, we gotta take her tonsils out. And as a young mom, I'm like, wait, you don't just remove people's organs. Like, you can't just remove things. Like, what do the tonsils do? Nobody told me. What do the tonsils do, right? So I learned that tonsils filter, they're one of the last filters before blood goes to the brain. So when all your other organs have done all the detoxing that they can manage to do, and then if your tonsils get inflamed, there's a sign that you have an overload of toxins in your system. So if any of this sounds familiar to you, there's the Feingold diet, and you need to look it up because that's where I found all the information. I think it's F-E-I-N because it's German, F-E-I-N-G-O-L-D. And this was 20 years ago. So I'm sure there's newer publications and books with this same diet, but basically what he teaches is food dye, preservatives. You take all of that out of your child's diet, and he actually wrote the book about the diet to help children with ADD and ADHD. So when we started removing all of these additives from our daughter's diet, not only did her tonsils heal, her personality changed. So I'm a firm believer in very, very limited amounts of those preservatives. So through all that, 20 years ago, I became a label analyzer, ingredient list analyzer, and that slowly drove me back to the kitchen because I couldn't afford to buy the foods that she could have. The organic cereals, everything had to be organic, and it was twice as expensive as what I could find at the grocery store. So that's what drove me back to the kitchen, just like my mom and grandma taught me. And all of our children, so we have 7 children, 2 of them are adopted, and when people say, oh, my children don't react to food dye, my children don't react to that, I say we have 7 children, 2 share no DNA to any of our other children, and I can honestly say all of our children, myself included, we act different when we eat food dye and preservatives. And after a while it accumulates and we get sick if we continually are consuming. And sometimes I'll even be like, my children are acting like they're consuming food dye, and I'll have to, like during the school term this happens, and I'll have to be like, are you eating treats at school? And they're like, no. I'm like, did somebody have a birthday? Oh yeah, 2 people had birthdays in a row. And I'm like, oh, you had some treats, and that is why suddenly you're having these behavioral issues. And I'm like, where's this coming from? Now, I'm not saying my children aren't sinful. I mean, not saying food dye is the reason they sin. They have free will too, but there's a difference in their behavior. So the list of additives and food dyes goes on and on and on. And my basic rule of thumb, because you know that companies can, so let's say I was used to looking for the preservative TBHQ, because that was one that was on the list in the Feingold diet that we couldn't have. They changed those, and they now call them something else. So then I have to go back to the drawing board. So my basic rule of thumb is, if there's something on an ingredient list that I don't recognize as a food, it's not going to become part of our diet. I mean, I'm not saying we can't have it for a treat, but we're not going to continue to buy it. The long-term health of our families is what's going to drive us back into the kitchen. So the cost of eating prepackaged food is not only because it's expensive, but why are we spending money on something that has no nutritional value? It's the same, we're just pleasing our taste buds. So not only are we more unhealthy than we've ever been before, but we're also spending a lot of money on food. So whenever I'm tempted to just go back to the grocery store and buy what we need, I look at my children and I look at this sad, fallen world, and I think, maybe earning a paycheck is not always going to be enough for them to be able to feed their families. Cooking from scratch, to me, is a vital skill. It's as vital as them knowing how to raise chickens, how to milk a cow, how to have a garden. Because like I said, earning a paycheck may not always be enough. They may not always be able to buy food to feed their family. For the last couple generations, parents have been so focused on making sure that their children can earn enough money to make a living. But what if we shift that focus back home and make sure that our children have the skills that they need to not only provide money and a roof over their head, but how to build that home and how to raise the food. Maybe earning a pay, that's what brings me back to the kitchen, is my boys. Maybe earning a paycheck is not going to be enough one day. So let's start with mac and cheese. And if you live in our hometown, you will see me go to the grocery store and buy mac and cheese. When you see me put mac and cheese into my cart, you're gonna know one thing: Mom's going out of town, and this is the bribe that I use for the kids. Here, I'm going out of town. I'm really, really sorry for leaving you. Do you want some mac and cheese from a box? So I'm saying that to say it's a treat for them. It's a special occasion. They can make it themselves. So I'm not saying I never buy Kraft mac and cheese, but you can make mac and cheese. I love making pasta. If you make homemade pasta, everything else is going to taste like rubber. So to make your mac and cheese, we're going to break it down. For pasta, you need eggs, flour, tallow or fat. You can use butter or lard, or don't use Crisco. You can use olive oil and salt. Those are the 4 ingredients that you use to make pasta. That's it. Those are all, you all recognize those as food, right? And then you'll make a homemade cheese sauce. So you'll use milk and rennet. That helps your cheese to set up. And then you're going to use butter and flour, and here again some salt. And that's going to be your cheese sauce. So those are the ingredients you're going to put together, and you're going to have homemade mac and cheese. And if it's a special occasion, you can put some bacon on top, and it's going to be really good. This is the ingredient list for the mac and cheese that you buy at the store. Don't make this part of your main diet. So you don't have to go as far as making your own pasta. You can, if you're new to cooking from scratch, and I do this in the summer sometimes when we're real busy, you buy your pasta. Buy the best pasta that you can. You don't have to make it. And then make your own cheese sauce. Learn how to make cream soups. If you learn how to make cream soups, you can cut so many store-bought ingredients out, because a cream soup, all it needs is a little bit of adjusting, and you have a cheese sauce. So a cream soup's like a gravy. And you can make it with broth or water or milk, and you can add any vegetables you want. And all of this that I'm talking about is in some way, shape, or form on our YouTube channel. And I have a YouTube video on cream soups and how to use them instead of buying cheese sauces and gravies and things like that. So cereal was really, really hard for me to give up, because in the morning, I'm a morning person. I don't want to stop to eat breakfast. I just want everybody to hit the ground running, and we'll stop at lunchtime. That's my natural pace. So cereal seems like a logical, here, eat a bowl of cereal. If you're hungry, eat a bowl of cereal. And cereal was really hard for us to give up. But look at the ingredient list. And like I said, labels are changing, rules are changing. You cannot trust that what you know to watch out for is going to be labeled the same. So here's the granola that we make from scratch, and I think this recipe is it's either on my Instagram, actually I think it's on YouTube under a breakfast foods video. If you source your oats from an organic where they've not been sprayed with Roundup to kill down the oats, organic brown Rice Krispies, coconut sugar, butter, and cinnamon. When I make it, I add a little bit of salt because I just think mineral salt brings the flavor out and everything. And a little tip, if you're trying to cut back on sugar consumption, if you use salt in recipes that don't ask for salt, it makes the sugar that you do add taste better. Where to start when you're cooking from scratch? So one of my favorite tips for when you're starting to cook from scratch is look at your grocery list and choose one thing that you're going to learn to make from scratch. Salad dressings are very easy to make from scratch. They don't take a lot of time at all. And when you're first starting to make your salad dressings, if it's a cream salad dressing, if you're not ready to start making your own mayonnaise, just buy your mayonnaise. Buy the best one that you can afford. And then slowly you'll transition to, I think we're gonna make our own mayonnaise. Cookies, yogurt is very, very simple to make, even if you're using store-bought milk. Pasta is my favorite, bread, tortillas. I'm trying to come up with a tortilla recipe because, like I said, I wanna get out of the kitchen as fast as I can. And the most annoying thing about making your own tortillas is having to roll them all out. My family can literally eat them as fast as I can make them. So I'm trying to come up with a recipe where you make your batter thin and you pour them in like pancakes. And then you flip them. You don't think that's gonna work? I tried a tortilla press. I broke it because I tried so hard to smash my tortillas. Yeah, they said that only works for corn tortillas. I want flour tortillas. So guess who's still buying tortillas? Me. But some people may have more patience or a smaller family that doesn't consume tortillas as fast as mine does. Okay, one of the biggest challenges that you might face is the refined palates of your family. So you're gonna have to give their palates some time to adjust. You're gonna have to slowly wean them off because here's what happens. All these flavor enhancers that are in food, they give your brain a wow factor. They give you a dopamine hit. You're not going to be adding that to any of your home-cooked food. It's gonna taste bland. Nobody's taste buds are gonna go wow because they're addicted to flavor enhancers. Same way as screens. We talked yesterday how if your children don't want to join you in what you're doing, it's because nothing you can do can compete with the screen time they're getting. It's the same with junk food or store-bought processed food. Nothing you can make can compete with that yet, when they're still used to flavor enhancers in all of their food. I think we underestimate how food is connected with what our brain is. Like, I think we underestimate the damage that those flavor enhancers do to our need for real food. So, story about weaning my family from cereal. So first, we decided, okay, we're gonna buy the Aldi cereal and it's gonna stay on the shelf and it's only gonna be for Sunday mornings, right? So we didn't eat any cereal during the week. It was just for Sunday morning. And then slowly, I started forgetting to buy cereal at Aldi. And oh no, now it's Sunday morning. We don't have any cereal. Well, I guess you'll have to eat granola. Sorry. And so that started happening more often. And I got more forgetful. And soon we just weren't buying cereal. So if you live in my hometown and you see me put cereal into my cart, know one thing: Mom's going out of town and the kid's gonna have cereal for breakfast and lunch and supper. Okay, so another trick, and I'm very glad I'm not doing this presentation when the family's here like they were yesterday, because I'm telling you all my tricks. So let's take ranch, for instance. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to mix a little bit of homemade ranch, and you're going to fill the top part of that ranch bottle, store-bought ranch bottle, that's 1/4 of the way empty. You're going to put your... Does this tell you how picky some of my people are? You're going to fill it with homemade ranch, and you're going to shake it all up. And then the next time, you're going to add a little more and a little more until... What I do now is I make homemade ranch, completely homemade. I put it into the ranch bottle. And that's how we eat our ranch. Now, my new son-in-law, he has a very refined palate, and he'll be like, this doesn't taste like it did last week at family dinner. So he's giving away some of my secrets. Most of my children know. They're gracious about it. But it takes time, and ranch is taking over the world. Have you noticed how many children need ranch on everything? We all know where I'm going with this. It's the flavor enhancer that's in it. It makes people want to come back for more. So ranch is very, very simple to make. I think I have a recipe on YouTube for ranch dressing, but basically it's sour cream, or I use Greek yogurt because I like to make Greek yogurt better than I like to make sour cream. Mayonnaise and your seasonings. And if you want it thin, you add some milk. If you want it thicker, you don't add milk, and then it's more like a veggie dip. So start with simplifying your ingredients. I already talked about learning to make cream soups. Learn how to make your own broth and sauces. That's going to cover a whole lot of dishes if you can learn some of the basics. Are you buying chicken Alfredo in a box? First of all, you're going to start cutting it back, and you're going to buy your pasta separately because you can control that a little better. You can buy a better pasta. And then you're going to use your leftover rotisserie chicken that you maybe bought earlier, instead of because you have a little more control over what type of chicken you bought. And then you're going to buy your Alfredo sauce. And so this is just the first step, getting you away from buying your chicken Alfredo in a box. You're going to break down the ingredients and add them together separately. I had to learn to do that because one box didn't go far enough, 2 boxes were too expensive. It was cheaper to source my ingredients separately. So then you're going to take a look. What's going to happen next is you're going to take a look at the ingredients on your Alfredo sauce. And you're going to see that it has garlic, has cream, and you're going to say, I wonder if there's a recipe for this. You're going to go to my YouTube channel and you're going to see, I actually don't think I have Alfredo sauce on there, but you can find recipes, and you're going to say, I can make my own Alfredo sauce. And then you're going to say, I can make my own pasta. And slowly you're going to evolve and start cooking from scratch more and more. And before you know it, you're going to say, there's milk. I need a milk cow. And then you're going to say, I need lots of eggs to make homemade pasta. And then you're going to go get chickens. And that's how you're accidentally going to become a homesteader. Like I said, your family's palate is going to need time to adjust. You're not going to say, okay, I'm going to make all my pasta sauce because, I bought some canning tomatoes. You're going to start with a small recipe, and you're going to see how your family receives it. And then when you land on a recipe that majority of the family is okay with, you're going to make that your big recipe. And I say majority because if your family's like mine, you're not going to be able to please everybody. You please majority of the family or the one who is able to influence the others on what's good or not. And you're going to feel wasteful if you put all this time and effort into, let's say, tortillas. Take half a day, make 50 tortillas, and they're going to end up getting moldy in your fridge because nobody ate them. It doesn't inspire anybody to keep cooking from scratch. So start slowly and then scale up. And don't be afraid to try different recipes. If you go on Pinterest and type in tortilla recipes, hundreds and thousands of recipes. Compare them, see what they do differently, and you're gonna find your own skill. You're gonna make it your own because you're gonna compare different recipes and you're gonna say, she does it this way, and she does it this way. I wonder why, and I wonder what the differences are. And when you go on YouTube and you see some of my recipes, I want you to only be inspired to make it your own. Change things up, do things differently, then come back and tell me, you know what I did? This worked so much better. Don't ever just think that a recipe is a rule. You can change things up. So one of the other skills that you have to learn when you're learning to cook from scratch is having everything be ready at the same time. So let's say you're making chicken Alfredo. If you cook your pasta while you're stirring your Alfredo sauce and your chicken is burning in the oven, it takes time. Don't think you're gonna get it perfect. Number one, your chicken, you can make that beforehand and cool it, pick it off the bones or however. And your pasta too. You can make that the day before and it can hang to dry. You don't have to put pasta into your boiling broth right after you make it. You can hang it to dry, and then you can make your Alfredo sauce, and that needs to be watched because it'll scorch. You make that your baby. Make your Alfredo sauce. When that's done, then you cook your pasta. Those are all things that you're gonna learn as you make mistakes. Don't just say, I have no time management skills, so then I'll never be able to cook from scratch. You're gonna learn where your own weaknesses are, and you're gonna teach yourself what you can make ahead of time and what has to happen right then. If you can take a shower, and I use this line because I have teenagers in my house. If you can take a shower, put on your makeup, and get to church on time, then don't try to convince me that you don't have the basic time management skills that it takes to be able to whip this meal together. It just might mean you need more practice. You were here yesterday, weren't you? You need more practice. How do my teenagers know? How can they get to church on time? Because they practice and they've made it a priority to think about what time I have to start if I want to get to church on time with makeup on. So as you work on your recipes, you're going to make them your own and you're going to write yourself notes. And when I learned to make sourdough, I did this. You write what time you have to do each step. So when you find a recipe and you make it your own, you're going to remind yourself by saying, 1, 2, 3, or start this first. And you can write yourself notes because it might be a couple weeks until you come back to that same recipe. So when you've learned something, make yourself a note about it. So the more often you go grocery shopping, the more money you're going to spend. So the key is to stay out of the grocery store as much as possible. That's how you're going to save money. Keep your ingredients that you buy from the grocery store minimal. Like have your basics, your basic list of ingredients, and then keep a running list of meals that you make using those basic ingredients. Like if you're buying pasta, you can buy one kind of pasta and use it for all your pasta dishes. That's what we do. Because our homemade pasta, is all in noodles, so noodle form is what we use. So keep a running list of the meals that you are confident in making and make those often, and then just switch things up a little bit and give them variety. And I don't do a meal plan. I have a mental Rolodex of meals that I can whip out because I've been doing this for a long time. But for my children, because they help too, we keep a list of meals on the side of the refrigerator. And when I say, hey, I want you to be in charge of dinner tonight, what would you like to make? They can go, because they can't see my mental Rolodex, right? They can go to the side of the refrigerator and they can choose from that list. And that list includes things that we can make with our basic staples that we keep on hand at all times. So there might be things like sloppy Joe sandwiches or cheesy potato soup, things that we always keep in our pantry. So Azure Standards is a good place, a trustworthy place to buy in bulk. If you live in a Mennonite or Amish community, they have bulk food stores. But buying in bulk takes some skill. How many people here buy in bulk? Okay, so a lot of you. It took me a while because I did that, getting away from my roots, and I fell into the habit of I can go buy 10 pounds of flour whenever I need it, but then I got tired of spending money at the grocery store. So buying in bulk takes a little bit of skill because you have to learn which flour you like, which brand of sugar you like. You don't want to buy a flour, you don't want to buy 200 pounds of a flour that you decide is not working for your needs. So start out slowly, invest in bulk food containers. We like the Gamma lids, the 5-gallon buckets with Gamma lids. And that's what we store our oats and flour and sugar in, is those Gamma Seal lids. When you stock your pantry with all of these staples, if you have salt and sugar and flour and oats, you have meat, you have vegetables, you have eggs, you have milk, that's basically all we use. You can make anything with your staples. So whittle your grocery list down to the bare minimum and learn to just use those things differently. Nobody needs to. The other thing is we have to change our mentality from I need something different every day to this is good, nourishing food. My body needs a lot of this, and we need to have it often. Eggs, meat, dairy, vegetables. And then we have family dinner, and then I'll make something special at family dinner, and I'll redeem myself from all the boredom cooking that I did during the week. But we don't, as a society, we have to come away from thinking that food needs to bring us pleasure at every meal. We have to look at it like we're nourishing our bodies. Okay, I kind of covered some of this already. I got ahead of my slides. Only buy in bulk those items that you know you're going to use a lot of. Buy brands that you trust, and invest in bulk storage containers. And then, of course, if you don't garden, or if you can't garden enough to grow all of your own veggies, you're going to have a source for, ideally, this is what you do. You'd have a source for buying those veggies in season and preserving them, rather than going to the grocery store to buy, your carrots. You're going to have carrots that you stored or canned, and you're going to eat seasonally that way. Because I always come back to ask the question, which has more nutrition for my family? The applesauce that I canned because the apples were going soft, so I turned them into applesauce and canned, or an apple that's been chemically treated and sprayed and peeled and picked in California or somewhere, which is more nutrition for my family? That's a question I always ask. Or am I buying fresh table grapes at the grocery store, which I don't know about you, but I can't afford them for a family of 10 or 12, or by the time I get them washed, they're gone. And they're expensive. So does that actually have more nutritional value than the grape juice that I canned from Concord grapes in the fall? So when you start comparing what has more nutritional value, Then you start eating more seasonally because you understand that if something wasn't grown in my local region, then it's been shipped in, and you start questioning the nutritional value of it. Because, no, I didn't say this yesterday, I said it on Instagram this week. The minute something is picked and leaves the stem, the enzyme that God put within it starts breaking it down because it's meant to become compost when it leaves the stem. So it starts breaking down. So if I pick something and preserve it within hours of picking it, even if I'm canning it, pressure canning green beans, you know, the argument there is, well, you've canned all the nutrients out of them. But which really has more nutrients? The green beans that got shipped from who knows where and are 2 weeks, 3 weeks old and been refrigerated. Refrigeration slows down the enzyme, but it doesn't stop it. Or do the green beans that I canned or froze within hours after picking them, do they still have more nutrition? So for us, we're going to eat seasonally as much as we can, eat what we preserved and grew all summer, and then buying fresh from the grocery store is going to be for special occasions. But majority of our diet is going to be what we raised or cooked or, you know, grew ourselves. Please do not judge me on the grammar. I typed these up last night because I'm like, oh, I still need some closing slides. And I didn't put pictures to them. I didn't even check my grammar. These are really just my notes. So the key to successfully cooking from scratch is to start slowly. Do not just take all your family's favorite foods away when you get home. Please do not do that. And do not become legalistic about it. Think of those times, like our macaroni and cheese and store-bought cereal. Think of times when you say, hey, you know what my children got for Easter this year? They each got a box of cereal of their choice. That was their Easter gift, because I so often say no, and I wanted to say yes, but I made it a special occasion. You know what? We're not getting cereal today, but you know what? I'll buy you the box of your choice, and when it's Easter. So think, you know, don't take it all away and say never again. That's legalism that never serves anybody well. Just because you now know how to make your own bread does not mean that you're going to beat yourself up when you buy bread at the grocery store. I have 2 loaves of honey whole wheat bread, pre-sliced, from the grocery store in my freezer right now because we spend a lot of time in the garden. And if we want sandwiches for lunch, my sourdough starter has been taking a ride back and forth from my counter to my refrigerator all spring already, and I just don't get to it. So it's okay. We're going to have store-bought bread for sandwiches this week. No one was in the kitchen making bread. Cooking from scratch is never going to save any souls. It can help nourish our physical bodies, but if you only have energy for one thing, if you are maxed out, please don't let this overwhelm you. Cooking from scratch is not a gateway to heaven. You're still going to understand that what's most important is your family and your relationship with them. It's time? Okay, I'm almost done. And I think about this, like I remind myself of this every day when I'm tempted to be legalistic or make myself feel bad because I haven't done the best that I could in the kitchen. It's still better for your family to sit around chatting over Kraft mac and cheese than to have the absolute best food in the world without relationship with you. So don't beat yourself up about it. The last thing I want for you to do is go home and feel like you've failed because you're buying tortillas and mac and cheese and homemade white bread. If you have a relationship with your family, you have not failed. So he said time, so I'm guessing I don't have time for questions. No time for questions, but I'll be around if I don't mind talking with people at all. Thank you, everybody.